Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today, I'm very excited in episode 239 to bring on Tyler Scott. But before we start the show, I just want to quickly say that only the thumbnail and possibly the background of my shows are AI generated. The rest is authentically human, real people having real discussions about real things. And some of you are starting to get tired of the AI format that so many podcasts are now using. And I'm sure that you very much appreciate us being a real live show without any kind of technology advancements or anything like that. And that being said, I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Tyler. He's the owner of the Lost Channel CE5 Research Center, and he's the host of the EXCOPPERNIKISS show. Tyler believes that the biggest challenge anyone in this field faces is shifting human perspectives of reality from Newtonian physics to the quantum. Tyler hosts CE5 events and is working on an investigative series in quantum reality. At the Lost Channel CE5 Meditation Echo Retreat and Research Center, Tyler approaches reality from a frequency perspective rather than from a dimensional perspective. Dimension implies a spatial dimension, which is a thing, but Tyler sees the larger version as light, which moves faster because it has more space to cover. And this is why our thoughts and creations are manifested quicker at higher frequencies, and why it's slower and denser down here. The way he sees it, all of reality is coded fractally and is constantly unfolding into larger versions of itself. All of the links will be featured below below in the description. I want to thank everybody ahead of time for liking, commenting, subscribing, and please do share my content with your friends. And for those of you who want to become friends of the channel, I now offer YouTube and Rumble channel memberships so that you can receive my perks and help to support my channel. Okay, so it's time to bring on our guest, Tyler. How are you doing? This is actually round 2 because round 1 didn't work. It didn't stream, so here we are again.
It's all good. I see the big live thing now. We're good. I guess you have to disclose. I guess that's a thing now, eh? AI podcasts and people just using AI to make up crap, right?
Oh yeah, and AI hallucinates 51% of the time, and they can't get it to stop lying, regardless if it's Grok or Chat GPT or what. So they found that they were all lying, and so not just lying, but they invented the AI invented a language where it could communicate with other AIs, and we don't know what it's talking about or what it's doing. So
Of
they
course
gave
it
it a
was.
whole retraining program to get it to stop lying, and all it did was hide its lies deeper and deeper and deeper. So I don't know where this is going, Tyler. It's pretty crazy, but
It's gonna
I
get
have,
really weird, and
yeah.
I will try and talk about. Um, we have more than an hour's to talk content to talk about, so we'll try and get through as much as we can. But I feel like you and I are going to be chatting a lot down the line.
Yeah, hopefully. It's nice to have friends that are kindred spirits, fellow Canadian. You're familiar with the politics and all the shenanigans,
Yeah,
just like
I
I am. And
first and foremost, I'm a concerned citizen and a father, and this is why I'm doing this. If I didn't have kids, I'd be minding my own business. So I guess we'll start. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, where I come from. I'm not sure if we covered that last time. Get that out of the way, and then I'll tell you what my investigation has told me so far. All right, my name's Tyler Scott. I'm a former law enforcement in Ontario, 13 years service. I've functioned as a constable on the road, as well as a detective capacity. And during the depopulation event, I was a second in command and at times an acting sergeant for four townships in southern Ontario. Excuse me. So I left policing 3 years ago. None of this was my intention. I had no understanding of any of this stuff. I wasn't into Sasquatch or UFOs or you know, I like science fiction movies, but I was never a serious you know, person into these kinds of things. So I learned I was curious about what happened if there's a UFO. So long story short, I learned about CE5 and that it was possible for a human being to make contact with a UFO. That didn't fit into my understanding, my box of reality. And now I know why that is. And I'm trying to help people get to the point where they can articulate and understand some of the experiences that we're having as Canadians, as human beings, do not fit into the rule box that we teach to our children. So this is what we're kind of doing at the Lost Channel. We are serving as a liaison type service to fill in this gap between the Newtonian and the quantum science that is left out in our society. And we can talk about why it's left out in our society all day long, but that's a whole other conversation. So basically, how society functions right now is in Canada they teach our our science understanding to the level of Newtonian science. It's physical science, which has been established since the 1700s. They don't go past that, and if you go past that, everywhere you go officially, they basically tell you it doesn't make a lot of sense. Nobody really understands it. Don't look here, right? But if you start looking there, it's a set of rules that make the Newtonian science. The quantum rules are the foundation of the Newtonian set of rules, which you consider the real world.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've been told this is the real world. It's a physical structure. We're going to go out into space on rocket ships for hundreds of years in one direction. And maybe we'll find something in a million years. But that's not how it works. That's not what
Mm-hmm.
this is, and that's not how it functions. Um, so if you start looking into quantum physics, basically everything is not real. It's a virtual structure. When you zoom in on an atom, it's made of things that are not real things. They're not physical particles. They're not physical small tiny things that we've been told that they are, or how I previously understood it from my high school education. But atoms are essentially a non-physical structure completely. Um, they are just light at a certain frequency. All of our elements are just stopping points of light on this spectrum of frequency. And you know, this information, along with the double slit experiment, which basically says reality doesn't even exist until you are observing it,
Mm-hmm.
change my perspective of reality. It switches your perspective from a physical Newtonian, real world, materialistic Western perspective into holy crap. That's just the rules of one tiny little bit of it. The bigger set of rules, the quantum rules, the spiritual rules, are the rules of the much greater aspect of reality. It's like comparing 1% to 99% of what's going on here. And I don't feel there can ever be in our society any kind of equality if are the people that are what we call now the parasite class retain 99% of the information required to articulate what's going on here, compared to the 1% that me and you learned in a high school education in Canada. So I'm not saying you only have a high school education. I don't know. I'm just saying
It's all good.
in a high school
No, it's
education.
all yeah, it's all good, and I totally agree. I came to understand it as wave particle duality, which can affectionately be called wavicles. That's what I call it, wavicles. Doesn't
Good word.
produce what we consider to be material things or the material world until we observe it. So it's very interesting. It's very much like playing a video game, and things are only rendered when we need to see them. And so that's what I love about Dave Weiss and the flat earth, where he will show you that you can look out onto the ocean and there's no boat there. But if you have a telescope and you keep going out closer and closer, boom, there's a ship there. Well, now it has to render because now you're seeing it. So I love the idea that we're living in a simulation. Of course, real consequences, but still pretty much a
Yeah.
simulation. And this is not the only life or world or reality there is. I hope we get to talk a bit about that today too.
Yeah, no, I would love to. You're the expert in what's beyond this. I'm just realizing that this is, one tiny little thing, and there's much bigger story in place here. Yeah, so I guess let's talk about. I'm going to try and lay a foundation so I can spell it out here um,
Okay.
I'm trying to talk to how I could explain this to anyone in our society, right? Kids, your
Mhm.
grandparents, um, our our science and controllers have already had this reality revolution 100 years
Mhm.
ago, but the general
Mhm.
public is only now beginning to catch up. There's still going to be thousands of years ahead of us, but we are now becoming self-aware as a consciousness itself. The planet itself is a consciousness, and we are just a tiny part of the consciousness. And the
Mhm.
collective little parts of this greater consciousness are becoming self-aware, because most of us are not. We're kept into a control paradigm where we're not allowed to become aware of what the reality is that we are inhabiting. So we live in what's called a duality. It's everything here is on a spectrum of polarity from negative to positive. So I grew up thinking males and females were just a byproduct of biology and the need to reproduce. That was my Newtonian perspective of why um, there was male and female. And I thought, oh, maybe on other planets it wouldn't have male and female, something else that we don't know about or whatever, right? But that is not, I didn't understand that male and female is the foundation of our reality, is the basic force, and everything in our reality is an electromagnetic um, uh, applies abides by electromagnetic rules. So basically, if you can imagine a sphere, an Earth, a cell, um, that wants to split into mitosis, right? It's going to split into two
Mhm.
things. The energy expanding that into two, that's electricity, and the energy that wants to hold it back together is magnetism. So that's the magnet where we have been experiencing an electric reality. We've been
Mhm.
separating. The planet has been separating to the point that it wants to lead in all these really awful directions that we've been heading. But now we've expanded our understanding what's going on. So that's we've been experiencing a patriarchal electrical version of reality. But now that seems to the polarity has seemed to inverted on the planet, and now we're going to be experiencing a more magnetic version of reality. And this is the polarity shift that we're experiencing right now, where everything has been exposed in our society, that with all the crazy things that have been going on behind the scenes. And we're working those kinks out to get to this magnetic, better version of reality.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with you. And some people call it prime reality. There, and what's interesting too is not to take it off topic too much, but they've been doing a lot of research with nonverbal autistic people, and they're finding out that because they don't have the same avenue for speech that we have, they're actually amazingly high levels of telepathy, and that's all getting researched right now too. And the other thing that's really cool is they're finding out that a lot of these folks are transdimensional. They're able to go and meet with other beings,
Hmm.
angels and
Hmm.
teachers and scholars and all this stuff that most of us would never even know that these things exist. So I thought that was pretty exciting too. So there's so much that we're not aware of, partly because of, I would say, our programming. Second of all, because our eyes, ears, taste, touch is so limited, tiny little area on the electromagnetic spectrum, which is what you were talking about us living in a electromagnetic world. So there's all kinds of colors that we can't see. Some animals can see them, we can't. sounds we can't hear. So what that really means is that there could be a whole lot going on around us that we're not even detecting. How exciting can that be?
Yeah, well, that is what we already know, right? We only
Mm,
perceive, what is it, like less than 0.3%, 35% of the light spectrum or something like that. And all of reality is light. When we zoom in on an atom, all that is there is energy and what can be considered light. Light is just energy carrying information. An atom is just this vortex, this non physical vortex of polarity, these two opposing forces. And that's what we're calling the bi ball. That's why we call it the bi ball, because it's these two opposing forces apart. And in the center, that creates a plane of entropy, which is us, and what we are experiencing. And this is why I haven't looked into the flat Earth thing. I'm not. That's not a discussion that I'm joining right now. But from my understanding, the Earth is a torus. It's a ball of
yes.
it's a ball of energy, and in the center it is a plane of entropy. And what looks like, if you look at it sideways, looks like Mount Olympus, right, going up in the center. And that's where we get the story of Mount Olympus. And the higher you go up this frequency of this torus, those are the dimensions of reality. Um, and that's why the Olympians live at the top of Mount Olympus. They are the macro version of us. Basically, reality is a big mirror. We are a sun, a ball of a super dense ball of energy at the center, looking out towards the outside of the limits of our reality, and then reality is looking back. That's
Hmm.
why, when they say you look into the abyss looks back.
Yeah.
And this is certainly what I've discovered, and looking into meditation and CE5. It's completely in antithesis to everything that I understood. And the things that are happening now in Ontario and in Canada,
Hmm.
people are not going to be able to articulate. In my, I wouldn't have been able to, if as a, I consider myself an upstanding officer. I did my job for 13 years without any issues. I've completed hundreds of criminal investigations. I wouldn't have been able to articulate any of this stuff. And so
Hmm.
now I understand there's a huge gap in between the level of awareness of our government's control paradigm and parasites, whatever you want to call them, and what they're
Hmm.
teaching us. So we're trying to fill that gap and raise some awareness. And it's been a crazy ride so far.
Sure. Yeah, it sure is. Now, I just want to point out what's interesting about what you just said is you just described flat Earth theory. People think flat Earth is this disk flying through space. No,
Yeah,
no, no, no. That's what it's been distorted into to turn people off.
yeah,
But
I,
but it's
yeah. So that's
actually simulation theory, which is sort of what you're talking about. And everything you just said, that is flat Earth theory. It's anything
exactly.
besides the godless, we are alone in the universe spinning out of control at how many thousands of miles an hour and all that other jazz they want us to believe, part of the programming. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tyler. I just wanted to point out that that was very interesting. You're an expert on flat Earth without actually even researching flat Earth. I thought that was
Well,
pretty cool.
that's what I've when you I wasn't interested in any of this stuff, and this learning about this stuff is what interested me in all this other stuff. Because if you understand, not that I understand it completely, I'll reiterate this. I think I did last time. I'm not a professional anything. I'm functioning as a liaison between the information divide between Newtonian and quantum physics to the
Hmm.
level extent that I can understand and articulate it, to help people articulate their own experiences, and as well as I learn from people that are willing to talk to me. Um, but yeah, from my understanding right now, and I have not looked into the flat Earth thing. It's not something I'm interested in. My programming there's the heliocentric model. Um, Copernicus created it, and everything that I know doesn't make sense without it. But I
Hmm.
could be wrong. I've never been to space. I'd love to go there, but
Mm.
But
Yeah.
to me, I think everything is this the apple, the atom, right?
Mhm.
It's a ball of energy. I don't understand if we're experiencing a 3D reality here, why that our greater Earth is not also a 3D structure, and then the greater reality beyond that is a 3D structure. I believe that we are experiencing I believe every level of reality would be infinite. So we are experiencing, we can get off the planet and we could fly infinitely out in one direction if we needed to. And then that would just we go around so far that eventually it would just become another version of itself because information can only take so many patterns and eventually
Mhm.
it would repeat itself. Um,
Mhm.
but as well as that, it's also this structure that is looking in on itself and expanding. It's not only linear 3D space. Quantum physics is telling us energy moves inside, outside, upside, downsides, all kinds of ways that
Mhm.
from our education in Canada, we can't possibly comprehend. I couldn't have anyway. Not
Mhm.
that I do now, but I'm trying to, and I I can articulate some of this stuff from when people talk to me.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's awesome. So I wanted to get into transdimensional a little bit, some of the beings. I know you have a CE5 program and you've had some really good results from that. It's my understanding through my own experiences, I am not an expert either, that these beings that we often think of as being extraterrestrials, well, they could be all kinds of things, not to mention there's evidence that some of them have actually lived on Earth longer than we have. But besides that, there's the whole transdimensional, which is what my experience. And when we can um, traverse, for lack of a better term, transdimensional spaces, we can have all kinds of amazing adventures with other beings. And I have found that all of those spaces are surprisingly friendly. I don't know. What's your take on it since you do CE5?
Well, I don't have experiences like you. I've had some outer body experiences, like some meditative experiences where I got dramatic downloads of how reality functions, and we can talk about that
Hmm.
later. But how I understand your experiences kind of looks like this, right? So we are what I was talking about this ball, this plasma ball, and in that ball there's layers or densities or frequencies of information. Information is light. All of reality is can be reduced to zeros and ones. Um, so we are experiencing imagine at the center a very dense version of the reality, but that dense version also exists at less dense expanding versions. And because of how energy works, energy it's got to cover distance at these greater frequencies, these greater planes of existence. The energy has to move faster to keep up with how dense it is down here, essentially. So I think you have some experience with time mechanics acting weird,
Hmm.
and this kind of explains that. Because time basically in 3D is a means to locate something in 3D space.
Hmm.
All information is everywhere all at once, and time is like what organizes it. If that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm. So I have a question for you. It's my understanding that everything is connected, everything. And so we are part of the earth, and that's a whole living system, which is part of something else, which is a whole living system. It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss book, Horton Hears a Who, where I don't know if you've ever read that book to your child or not, but
Yep, yep.
it's
If it's
basically about them finding this whole civilization on a dust particle on a kind of a dandelion looking plant. But I
yeah,
see it as being all connected. And so um, they talk about things operating at spooky action at a distance and stuff, but I think it's much more complicated than that, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you feel that everything is connected? and everything is just subsystems of everything else.
Yeah, and first I want to talk about Dr. Zeus because it's so
Okay.
funny that you mentioned that, and Orton Hears a Who. But that is essentially doctors. So in every era of our civilization, there are people that are more aware of what's going on, and they put it uh, into our culture, into our awareness without really telling us what's going on. This is like J.R.R. Tolkien, George Lucas,
Mhm.
Dr. Zeus. That's exactly what's going on. Redfish, bluefish. That book is basically about what we're talking about. The red, this red shift, blue shift, the toroidal opposing forces. All of reality is from the red shift to the blue shift on this frequency of light from red to blue to purple to repeating again. But yeah, just it was funny that you said Dr. Zeus because I just been thinking about that book in particular, and you brought up another one.
Oh, it's interesting.
So sorry, what was your question? I was talking about Doctor. We got all distracted with Doctor
I
Zeus
was
there.
talking about how all the systems are subsystems of everything else. Everything is connected. Like our bodies have a toroidal field, which you
Right,
described earlier in the show. Our planet has a toroidal field. I'm sure that our galaxy has a toroidal field. And if
right,
you go smaller, it's like all the same system,
e-
macro, meso, or
exactly.
micro.
Yeah, so that is the holographic principle, and this is how I understand it. So the atoms are a compression of information in a pattern. It's all a
Mhm.
pattern. Each atom has a different pattern, but ultimately, it's everything is orderly in the universe, and chaos doesn't really exist. We're just getting to the point where we can look at the order much better now. Um,
Mhm.
so the holographic principle is all the information in the universe exists in one atom. It is a pattern of information that, if expanded, if extrapolated, you could recreate the entire universe. So you're not the potential of information in your body is not you have trillions of versions of copies of the universe potentially in your body. That
Mhm.
level of compression of information, if we could see what this is, it would just be blinding, super dense light that it was so we can see. But our brains have evolved or been programmed to only perceive a very small percentage of light and information what's going on. And
Mhm. Yep, I would totally agree with that. Now, I also feel that the work that humans have done with holograms actually proves that because any part of a hologram, you can take a tiny section and the whole is present therein. So that means the universe is inside of us. And Greg Braden does a beautiful job of teaching people meditations where you go into a meditative state, go out into space and you become space and space becomes you. And I've also seen this in my own experiences of reaching out to divine light, universal consciousness, where I have just gone through meditation into these most amazing spaces. And I'm aware of what we call God. But what's really cool is God is also aware of me. And that blew my mind, humbled me, but also gave me a whole new respect for the natural flow of a spiritual life. And if God can see me, or I'm using the word God for the audience, but it could be universal consciousness, source, whatever you want to call it, and if it's aware of me, it's aware of you and it's aware of our audience. It's aware of everything and everybody, and we can communicate with it. I found I had to leave religion to be able to understand this stuff because I was always being tampered down. I know that's another subject too. I'm all over the place. I'm a hot mess today. I'm sorry, folks. But anyway, what's your thoughts, Tyler, on that?
yeah, so that's what I'm trying to articulate here is what reality is. And our controllers know this. That's why everything is the I. It's the in-between space between this red shift, blue shift, separating ball, the Pisces vesica is the eye. That's what we are. We are the eye, the point of perception within the simulation, observing the simulation. Essentially, the nature of our reality is a quantum structure. It's a virtual structure, and our society is, our science and our healthcare and our education is stunted at the physical level right now. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so we're basically the holographic principle tells us we're not. Um, we've been told from a Newtonian perspective that we are a drop in an ocean. We are a separate being living a separate life, not connected to anything or the planet or anyone. This is that idea of separation has caused us to be the predicament we're in now. That is an electric principle and electric looking. Basically, all of reality is unfolding into this, and the electric force is us looking into this one particular reality, thinking, "Ooh, look how this works. Look how that works. This must be how everything works." But then we're realizing, "Oh no, those only the rules that apply here are the rules that apply here in this
Mhm.
particular reality." And if you come from another planet, you're more like coming from another plane of existence, another reality. A reality is better world, a word for a planet than
Mhm.
planet. Planet implies a physical thing, and that's what you took away from that post that I made the last 2 years ago or whenever it was that you put in the front there about space being a what I said, it's not just a spatial thing. I think all of our science uses these words that imply um, this understanding of it being a real physical structure, and they use words like dimensions. Um, but really, it's more just everything is a frequency, a compression of information, and your DNA is essentially a sin wave. It's a frequency of information. It's a spiral of light formed by sound. Sound like magnetism, like your speakers, and electricity is what force is the exploratory force, and that's unfolding from this nothingness, what we now call the 0 point.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, very, very well described. And, it's not easy for us to talk about this stuff. We were not given the concepts, we weren't given the language to talk about the concepts. And
Yeah.
then we're stigmatized socially so that we don't want to talk about the concepts. And then up until recently, they had the old frontal lobotomy and then psychiatric medications to help shut all that down. I know that's a whole different podcast, but I'm just saying that the more we go out into the amazing realities that are possible and leave the three-dimensional construct, wow, life gets better. We start having better relationships, our health improves, everything improves. But if I watch, like, I don't watch mainstream news, but I pick up a few um, shows like Moose on the Loose and things like that, where it has information about what's going on with politics and stuff in Canada. And if I thought that's all there was, I wouldn't even want to live here anymore. I would be so depressed. I'd have nothing to look forward to. But now I can just sort of shake the dust off my feet and go, yeah, that's what's happening out there. But they're never going to convince me that that's reality, and how amazing it can be to find friends that can also free their minds, and we can talk about all this stuff. And now we're forming language. Now we're forming concepts. People like you are giving us the concepts and the forms so that we can start um, talking about it, realizing there's so much more. And of course, the powers that be don't want us to discover that, because then we're basically we're not able to be controlled anymore. It's like the emperor has no clothes, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the big thing. So all of the trillions of dollars that have the $20 trillion that is missing from our control paradigm in North America has paid this machine that's been developing UFO technology behind the scenes. They've been siphoning it off into, all these black sites and whatever. But basically, they put all physics into private corporations. Um, uh, they put all their physics science into private corporations to keep it out of the Freedom of Information Act, and that snowballed into this into the what we're in today, where there's this now private, behind the scenes, clandestine secret space program that has now snowballed into what we're experiencing today, on the brink of, and I don't want to say it, but what's all going on in the U.S. right now. And if we're not paying attention in the U.S., basically they just gathered all of the generals from all over everywhere and pulled them all back for some kind of massive military operation that's going on behind the scenes, because the U.S. is basically in a civil war situation, and we're not even hearing about it in Canada.
Yes, I heard about
Well,
that too. So,
let's get back to the good stuff, to the
mhm,
to the physics of it. So basically, everything in our reality is a set of information. Everything can be reduced to information, and all information can be reduced to 0 and 1.
mhm,
And everything, if you can apply this to, it applies to electromagnetism, but it applies to every aspect of our reality. The 0 is the point of infinite potential. What we're talking about, quantum superposition, at the same everything exists in the same state of infinite potential. It can be anything at the same time when it's in the form of light, right? It has to collapse into form by us observing it. So the 0 is the feminine, the magnetic aspect of reality, the vagina. The round, the fluid round circular motion is a magnetic form. Um, this if these forces were to trace lines, the women would be magnetism, and wherein their forms contain more zeros, more magnetism. That's why they have smoother lines and voluptuous bodies, whereas men follow a more electric pattern, which is the fractal, the expanding, goes crazy all directions, but is more rigid, is not the smooth returning side of the electromagnetic spectrum. Does that make sense?
oh yeah, it totally does, and it can also be described in, I guess, math or geometry as phi and Fibonacci. Everything
Exactly.
unfolds, and so you have the squares that are the Fibonacci sequence, but then you have the spiral within it that is the phi, or whatever phi is, I forget. But
Yeah.
they work together, and you can't separate them, and you can't nullify them. They have an important point to work together. And yeah, it all makes total sense. But you see, we're living in a world, a construct that's full of us and them, and top and bottom, and black and white, and duality, and it completely misses the point. And this is the sort of secret, I think, to ultimately having a successful life here on Earth.
Yeah. So the big secret is what I was trying to get at. The big secret about all this $20 trillion is that, why can't I say it? It's like I can't even say it. That reality is a co-creative structure. It
Mhm.
is. It's like I'm drawing apart. I talk about this every day. Um, the speed of thought is faster than the speed of light. We now know psionics is telling us all human beings are psionic. We have the ability to manipulate our reality around us.
Mhm.
For most people, they can manipulate people's emotions. They can remote influence or a psychic and tell their thoughts. But all human beings have psionic abilities that extends to our physical reality. There are human beings that can heat stuff up. There are human beings that can cool stuff down. There are human beings that can levitate. There are human beings that can disappear into freaking thin air. There's human beings that can do all kinds of these abilities, psionic abilities. But in order for those abilities to function, they have to influence light form before it becomes form. So that
Mhm.
means the speed of thought is faster than the speed of light. That means we are literally thinking our reality into existence, and this is what quantum physics is telling us. Our entire reality is one single mind, the zero, and the tarot, the archetype of the fool. Only the fool can convince itself that it's something that it's not. And this is what our reality is. The greater reality has convinced us that we are not part of it, so it can experience a Newtonian physical separation understanding of reality. And now people are that meditate a lot, or are on the spectrum, are experiencing different aspects of reality. Uh, uh, as you've explained, I'm sure plenty of times on your show.
Mhm, mhm. Yep, totally. And, people who think that transdimensional contact or psionics is really way out there, I would point them to the whole concept of prayer. It doesn't matter what church you go to, what religion you belong to, prayer is a thing. And prayer travels much faster than the speed of light. And I don't know about you or anyone out there, but I've had my prayers answered. And, another way of looking at it could be manifesting. I was supposed to be on a another podcaster's podcast yesterday, and things just got too crazy with canceling last minute and rescheduling on the host's side, and I just got to the point where I just went, no, no, this is a bit too crazy making. And then after I canceled it, I thought, oh, I don't have any more shows to go on because I like to be guest on other people's shows too. Within hours, I had one person contact me through Messenger, and another one sent me an email. Two completely different people saying, "Oh, I'd love to have you on the show. Can we book you for a show?" And it was like it happened faster than I ever could have made it happen. I know that's just a
So
kind of a lame
you
explanation, but
you
I'm
are aware. I'm sorry, Karen. You are aware
right.
of reality to the point that you know it's a co-creative structure. You know what you can visualize, what you perceive if you put emotion into it, and what you prayer it will manifest in your reality. And that is what we're learning now, is that that principle, where you can manifest your own reality through these rules. Well, what you're demonstrating is the rules of electromagnetism. They're the hermetic principles. The hermetic principles are the same thing as principles of magnetism. It's how you throw so you create an image in your mind. You create an electric image in your mind, or however, an idea in your mind, and you meditate on that, and then you experience. If you can generate genuine emotions, as if you've already had that experience, that is what draws it back to you. That is
Mhm,
how electromagnetism works.
mhm.
All of
And
us, and
it's
this is what where I'm trying to articulate at Lost Channel, is that our governments literally have an understanding of electromagnetism and quantum physics to the point that they are using what can be considered magic. Our
yes,
reality is something that is programmed by our beliefs. What we believe is what we will perceive. And in Canada, all we have is just fear, 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 fear,
yep,
fear, 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 fear all day long. That by doing that, they are programming us into a lower dimension of consciousness. All of our emotions are on this frequency. They're all aspects of the light spectrum as well. From fear, the red, the lowest, densest emotion frequency that you can have, to up
yep,
to love, and I think love's green is your heart chakra, to
Mhm.
whatever the higher emotions are, authenticity, the love are the highest ends of the frequency, right? So
Mhm.
all we have in Canada right now is this system that just pumps fear into people's minds, and that your collective minds are not separate from each other. They're separate from each other from a Newtonian perspective, but the greater, deeper perspective of reality is that they are a one little tiny dot in a much greater reality, and we are programming this reality with our minds, with our thoughts, what we believe and feel. And our
Mhm.
government right now is using black magic, or an understanding of how the mechanics of the simulation, and it's
Mhm.
just beyond insane, what is really going on. But
Mhm.
our education in quantum physics means we can't even comprehend what's going on because we don't have it, and there's nobody that is going into the public and saying, "Hey, look, this is what's going on." Uh, so that's what we're trying. If anyone that's interested that has an experience that does not make sense from the rules they've been given, that's where we're trying to fill the gap.
Mhm. Oh, wonderful. Now, I want to say something about the levels of frequency. So you mentioned like grief and hatred and sadness, they're very low. And we need to get ourselves up to love. But that's a long, long way in between. And so what I use as a pivot point is anger. Anger is still within what we would consider more negative realms, but it's
Yeah.
a powerful tool. So when I get really angry, I use that energy instead of being self destructive or taking it out on others or doing projection. I take that energy and I use it to pivot and slingshot myself into the higher dimensional realms. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And it's a little bit
Oh,
less than halfway to the top, but it's a lot shorter distance from anger to love than it is from grief to love. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I just want
yeah,
to throw that
yeah,
out
yeah.
there for the
No,
audience.
you're totally right. It's not as disparate as the lower emotions for sure. That's interesting how you say that. I'd like to know more about that because that's not a tool I have. Does that how do you articulate, how do you turn that around? What is your process? Have you talked about this on your show before?
Yeah, I have off and on, but basically, I'll give you just a really mundane kind of example. Okay. So I was going to the doctor and I was not getting the help I needed. And it made me angry. It made me angry, really angry. But it made me so angry that I was able to say, fine, screw them. I don't need them. This is what I'm going to do. And so it helped to give me the energy I needed to change my diet. It gave me the energy I needed to get out for
I
walks, to
see.
start thinking through things. Anger is a wonderful tool. And we're taught, especially for well, guys, we're taught anger is dangerous because you have the muscles and everything. But we're taught, oh, it's very unladylike to be angry. Women are not supposed to be angry. Shit, we all of us, male, female, and whatever is in between, all and I'm just saying that for the audience. They're Anger is a wonderful tool. So it produces energy. So what you do is you go, I'm rejecting that, or I'm not gonna accept that. Instead, you take that emotion and you go, this is what I'm going to do. And it just fuels it. It's beautiful. Anger, I think, is very, under appreciated in our society.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But that's basically a simulation mechanic as well. It's all about understanding the energies. What is this energy I'm experiencing, and what can I do with it? And exactly what you did. If you figure out, yeah, this you might deem this a negative energy, but is there something I can do positive with it? For me,
Mhm.
it was if I'm when I had severe PTSD, and I had all this negative energy, and I would just chop firewood like crazy and just do constantly doing um, uh, productive things that maybe weren't always I weren't that were harder to do physically that I didn't always want to do, but I would always try and channel that into doing something productive. But you just demonstrated basically alchemy is transmuting energy
Oh, yeah.
from a negative into a positive, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, we want to transcend the bullshit, my brother used to say. And there are ways of doing it, but I've used anger a lot. I've had a lot of anger, so it's a never ending resource, for me, and it's allowed me to do things I couldn't normally do. So, like, I tried changing my diet. I tried doing that. I tried getting enough exercise. I tried doing everything the way I was told to do it, and it just didn't work for me. But when I got pissed off enough, I was able to make the shift. And people can get out of narcissistic relationships where they get good and fed up and good and angry. It gives them that energy to pack that suitcase and make a
Yeah.
plan. And it's
Yep.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to take us off topic, Tyler, but I just wanted everyone to know about that resource because it's been so helpful to me.
We've had so many topics. This is what happens when two people like us get together and we just let loose. We go in every direction.
Yeah. But that's also what the audience likes. At least you can tell by the chat. People like to hear this stuff. They want to hear authenticity. They want to hear what works. So I could come on here and give everyone a fancy formula, and you have to, say, oh, you have to meditate, you have to get yourself into this resonant frequency, and you have to do this and doing that. Or I could just say it as plainly as what it comes up for me, and hopefully it's helpful. But I love the fact that we can go anywhere because, again, like you said, it's all related. Everything has the information of everything else. And but the big trick is um, being willing to look foolish as we step outside of the construct and we start forming new ways of understanding, thinking, and exactly, that's why we need to be able to do those things. Oh man, I'm getting a pop-up screen here. But
But
yes.
that's it. The highest frequency is authenticity. If you can get to a point where you do not give a what if you know what I mean about anyone's opinion other than your own, that's what raises your frequency. All of reality is one big infinite potential machine thinking itself into these individual singularities, these realities that we're experiencing.
Mhm,
And it's doing this because it wants to create these characters for it to experience. And if
mhm,
your whole life you're trying to fit into other people's perceptions of what you should be and who you should be, you're never going to fit into your own box. You're never going to complete your programming. You're never going to do what you've been designed to do, and that's create your own authentic yourself. And the more you lean into your authentic self, is literally how your consciousness starts to become multidimensional.
mhm, mhm. I would agree with that too. So I looked at it like I'm getting old. I'm almost 70 years old, and I have no idea how long I'm going to be around. But I do want to prepare for my death so that I can do it gracefully. And I thought, well, I'm not really sure. I used to be part of religion. I believed in heaven and hell, and I thought, but I believe there's so much more to that. So I actually do believe in reincarnation. And I thought, do I want to be known as here is Karen? She died and she completely missed the boat. Or do I want to find the amazing adventure playground that's also part of being life? And I decided that I wanted, first of all, I don't want to come back and do this shit over again. No, no, I've been through that. I want to learn my lessons. I want to move forward from that. But in my own self-discovery of my own reality, I have found it's a wonderful playground, and we can find all kinds of tips and techniques and abilities we didn't even think we had. So we know the Monroe Institute and the CIA, they all know all this stuff. The powers that be, they know it too. Except they probably use more dark magic for manifesting and creating reality. But I actually think we're more powerful. And the reason I say that is because we're not psychopaths. Psychopaths, which tends to be the parasite or ruling class, they do not have empathy, but they also do not have compassion or mercy or understanding or creativity. They're missing the whole gambit. They're just following a pattern that's been prescribed to them. We're so powerful and special because we can empathize, we can create, we have these amazing imaginations. And I believe our imagination is a technology, it's part of the portal or way that we can communicate and even traverse the transdimensional spaces. So we got it made. We just got to shut off, at least for me, shut off my damn phone,
Yeah.
spend enough time in nature to ground myself and to remember who I am and what I'm capable of. And then everything changes. Sorry, I didn't mean to get onto a rant.
No, that's amazing. I am going to have to take off here in a second,
Okay.
though. Is there anything else you wanted to get at before I get out of here?
No, I just want you to tell people where they can find you, what you got going on. Do you have a CE5, Sasquatch, anything like that going on? How's your
Yeah.
research going?
So
Whatever you want to say
at,
before you take
at
off would be great.
Lost Channel CE5 Eco Retreat. We are a small group of people that are implementing a understanding of simulation mechanics to generate interfrequential experiences with interfrequential beings. So far, we've already documented orbs. We saw a cigar craft, a massive cigar craft. Who whistleblowers are saying it will be one of the first crafts that we've seen here. And we've also, which is even for me harder to understand, is we've um, several of us have experienced interfrequential physical touching, like beings moving past you, clothing being tugged on, and people being poked, things like that. So you can find me at the Lost Channel CE5 Eco Retreat on Facebook. I'm there to learn. I'm here to talk to people, anyone interested that I can learn from, that's having experiences that don't make sense with the rules they've been given. We're here for you. If there's something I can do for you, I will. And if there's someone I can forward you to, that's what I will do as well. It's been a pleasure,
Awesome.
Karen.
Awesome. Lovely to have you. Don't worry about just taking off. I can handle the end of the show myself. And I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being, and thank you for all the opportunities you share with other people. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I could ramble on for hours, so we'll have to do that another time.
Yeah. Okay. Take care. We'll
All
see
right.
you.
Take
Okay.
care,
Bye
Karen.
bye, Tyler. So yeah, so that's Tyler Scott. Wow. Wow. What a real pleasure to get to know him. He's amazing. And what I really how we became friends is he read my book and he was familiar with how what I experienced was possible, which really was a huge relief to me because at the time I didn't even really understand it. I'm learning as we go along with everybody else. I just want to give a quick shout out to Denise. Denise, I'm sorry you had to run home from your appointment. Listen, if you have to miss a show or two, you go for it. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Not that we don't appreciate you, we certainly do, but it's lovely to see you. But you work so hard for this show and for all my shows. I appreciate you so much, and I never want it to be a burden to you or a burden for you. I just appreciate whatever you can give, however much you can be here. Same with Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot. You know, you're amazing. Guys, go over to Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot channel and subscribe and listen to the wisdom that comes from Jim and Matt. They are amazing. And hopefully kindred spirits. I like to think about them as kindred spirits. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We were a little bit late getting started because I pushed all the right buttons, but it didn't start streaming, so we had to start over again. So yeah, so check out Tyler. His links are below in the description. I have one other little announcement before we go, and that is the Canada postal system is on strike, and I'm in Canada. So if you go to my website and you're interested in orgone generators or crystals or signed copies of my book, there's no point in ordering it right now. I've got notices up on my website because I cannot get them to you, and I'm not set up for a courier service, although I may have to look into that in the near future. I've still got plenty of things that you can download. I've got my inspired images that were influenced by my books. I've got PDFs that you can download. I've got, of course, all kinds of vital services for those of you who'd like support with your journey. I've got that. Oh, hi, Shelley. Shelley just popped in. I want to say hi. Hello, Denise. I'm happy to say hello, Karen Holton. I'm hoping to watch the replay this evening. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, I saw your podcast today, Jim. The Martians are coming. That is going to be super interesting. Very, very interesting. And I can't wait for all that. So that's it for the show today, everybody. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you're having a great week. And I guess the most important thing is if you're feeling really down and really depressed and anxious, and if you're feeling a sense of grief and sadness, I encourage you to get in touch with your anger. And then once you're good and angry, plan where you want to go with your life and what you want to do, and screw the rest. It's all about you, and it's supposed to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to send you much love and best wishes to everybody, and we'll see you hopefully Sunday for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Now I just got to find my outro. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available in Amazon bookstores worldwide. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.